So welcome to the Enterprise Hub. My name is Pelumi. Let me just let somebody in. So yeah, welcome to the Enterprise Hub. And yeah, so just a little bit about myself. So yeah, I have a very creative background. As a child, I really wanted to, I was thinking of this the other day, what did I want to be when I was a child? And I wanted to be an inventor. That's what it was. I wanted to go to space as well and all kinds of stuff. But really, I was really quite a creative. I've always been a creative person. I used to invent games, write books, create products, and produce albums. And later in college years, my interest in business peaked when I started customizing portraits and T-shirts for people. And I took that into university, and that was really interesting for me. I've also started social commentary, which was basically a social commentary, and we did like youth outreach and all kinds of stuff through that business, and we had quite a big following on Facebook for that time period. Also created a design agency, and also currently I'm part of a co-founder of Enterprise Lab, which is based in Nigeria, and we do all kinds of stuff, and we've released even other sub businesses under that. So yeah, so that's just a little bit about myself, and I have lots of social entrepreneurship in my background in terms of like mentoring, coaching, workshops, outreach, reaches, youth groups, home groups, different kinds of initiatives that I've been involved with in times past. I'm a lead creative myself, a creative consultant with lots of agency experience, which has allowed me to work with different, like quite a lot of big global brands from like Window to Pfizer, those guys. Yeah, I've worked in the fintech space, education space, pharma space, technology, and I'm currently working with a leading fintech bank in the UK. So yeah, so that's just a quick summary of myself. What this presentation is not. Yeah. So this presentation is not a get rich quick scheme at all, right? It sounds like I'm about to do a get rich quick scheme type thing. They usually start off with, this is not a get rich quick scheme. Yeah, this completely is not that. This is not prosperity gospel. This is not dominion theology, the idea that, you have to get to the top of your career or some kind of ladder, and then, God's kingdom is realized. We're not promoting the love of money. And we're not trying to be cool either, right? I just had to address some of these points. Whilst I was inviting some people to join, there was one guy in particular who was quite like, on Easter, you're talking about business, and really we need to shake off some of this religious mindset, because part of this presentation is really, I want us first to cultivate an entrepreneurial way of thinking. I want us to have a holistic understanding of kingdom life as well, right? And that does include finance, wealth, money, as well as a whole bunch of other things. This is really about us having better stewardship of our time, our gifts, and our resources. This particular presentation is really about inspiring us to higher productivity and a higher culture. I really want to just get us thinking, about business. I want to get us thinking about enterprise and being enterprising, which is not necessarily like a money-making venture necessarily. It's also about wealth creation, and wealth creation is not just about money. It's also about knowledge, resource, time. The description of wealth is quite broad as well. So I want us to be mindful of our own economy, right? And the Enterprise Hub is really us creating a space for citizens to flourish. So let's get into it. So why do we need to be in business? Why do we need to be in business? So this whole presentation is going to be just 10 points for why I think we need to be in business. And yeah, I'd like to get your feedback at the end of this presentation and get your thoughts as well on even different points. So if you do have any questions or thoughts, you can make a note in the chat rooms, for example, and somebody will capture that and feedback. But also we'll have time at the end as well if you want to table any questions or share any thoughts. So the first reason why we need to be in business is that we have been given the power to make wealth. And in Deuteronomy chapter 8, verse 18, it says this, that you shall remember the Lord your God, for it is he who gives you the power to get wealth, that he may confirm his covenant that he swore to your forefathers, as it is this day. So the basic point I'm making here is that God has given us an ability. He's given us gifts. And once he's given it to you, then you need to put it to use, right? It's kind of like having something that you don't use, having a muscle that you don't flex. The Lord has given us power to make wealth. And also we see with the patriarchs how the Lord did use wealth as a demonstration of his covenant with them. We see Abraham, who was the first person to tithe to Melchizedek. And the setup was, there was another king as well that after a victory or a war, right? A king wanted to give him lots of money, lots of wealth. And Abraham rejected all that money because he didn't want to send out the image or the message that this man or this king made him wealthy, because his wealth came from God. And obviously Abraham handed over a massive inheritance to Isaac. So, and then we see Jacob as well. When Jacob spent time with Laban, he increased and multiplied his sheep. So we see his business savviness, right? Everything he put his hand to multiplied. And as a result, he was tricked to work for extra 7 years because they wanted his expertise, right? They wanted his the blessings that was with him. So yeah, so we've been given power to make wealth is the first reason. The second reason why we need to be in business is that there are problems that need our solutions, not just any solutions, but our solutions. When I say our solutions, I'm talking about solutions with our mindset. You know, there's a way, like, this is a very bad example, but for example, lots of, in the divorce courts, right? Lots of people lie about one another to get a divorce. So sometimes they paint each other even worse than, you know, just to get that divorce. So Parliament's solution was to make divorce easier, right? Rather than to make divorce more honest or to make judges more critical or something like that. They said, let's just make it easier. So this is the point I'm making here, is that our solutions are, because of the mindset that God's people have, it comes with a way of thinking. And so the world is crying for our solutions. Behind every frustration, need, challenge, hindrance that people face is a initiative, a business. There's an enterprise there. Because if you can solve that problem for somebody, probably they're willing to pay, right? If I can help you improve your CV, if I can help you position yourself for employment, then that's a service I can provide for you that would better your life, right? If I can coach you to help you overcome your fear so that you can do certain other things, that's a business, right? If I can help to welcome people that are new to an environment, to a country, and take them around or do stuff, there's a business behind that. There's an enterprise behind that. There's a initiative. So do you see what I'm saying when I say that there are challenges and problems all around us, from big to small? And behind all these challenges, there's a solution. If you create a system around it, before you know it, you have a business. Proverbs chapter 11, verse 26 says this, that people curse the one who hoards grain, but they pray God's blessings on the one who is willing to sell. That's a very interesting proverb there, because it's not actually saying that if you have a solution to a problem and don't do anything, that people it's not actually saying that people just want your help type thing. It's actually saying that, look, if you have grain, people are willing to buy it, right? They're not asking for handouts. People are willing to pay for your solutions, for your services, for your products. However, if you have these solutions that are solving people's problems in a massive way, right? And even though they're willing to pay, you're not delivering it, people are going to curse you, right? It's not like people are saying, help me for free. No. Once you have something to give, there's an expectation that you should give it. And by not giving it, you're doing a disservice to everybody. So the number 3 reason why we need to be in business is that there is a culture war in the marketplace. And this is a point I really want to emphasize, because I don't know if you've noticed in the year 2020 or 2021, there's been a lot of crazy things happening in the business space in terms of ideology, not just in the last 2 years, in the last even 10 years, right? And we've just seen a kind of culmination in the last year or two, where it's really getting to a very scary kind of space. In the book of Revelations, it talks about the Antichrist. And in this scripture here, it says in Revelation chapter 13, verse 17, it says, "It's also forced all people, great and small, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand or on their foreheads, so that they could not buy or sell unless they had the mark, which is the name of the beast or the number of his name." Now, am I saying that we need to get into enterprise or business because the Antichrist is here? No. What I am saying, though, is that the spirit of the Antichrist is really showing its ugly face. The spirit of the Antichrist is really showing its ugly face, and we see that in the ideology behind many kind of businesses and enterprises. What we're seeing is that neutrality is being eroded in the business space. So, for example, you might just want to go to a bank, right? Just so that, get your money, do your things. But now, just to get your money, the bank is going to indoctrinate you about LGBT or something, right? Or a business is going to say, we're not going to do business with you because you don't support this, right? So what we're seeing is businesses and in the marketplace, there's an increase, maybe pressure or trend for businesses to take positions on moral issues, right? Moral conscientious issues. And unfortunately, it's fashionable for them to align with antichrist ideologies most of the time, or not, well, a lot of the time. A lot of these big businesses have an antichrist ideology. So, for example, I don't know if anybody remembers some years ago I don't know if it's years ago, or was it last year? I think it was actually, no, it's definitely not last year. But it was during a gay pride month, right? Which is, I don't know, June or July or something. And on my phone, right? I was on my phone. And then I looked at my Barclays app, because I use Barclays for banking as well, right? And then on my phone, the icon turned to the LGBT flag. I was thinking, how do I delete it? I'm not trying to get that flag on my phone, right? I'm not interested. I'm not trying to push that ideology. I'm not interested, pretty much. And I thought something happened to my app, because I was like, I didn't upgrade or update my app. And this happened to a lot of people, right? And this is some of the stuff that people said. You can see some of the comments. Basically, it led to a lot of people rating Barclays with a 1 star, right? I don't care about your opinion on homosexuality, Barclays. And I don't want you to forcibly present that opinion to me every time I unlock my phone. I don't care about your opinion on abortions, on Brexit, on North Korea, on the Battle of Kosovo. I pay you to keep my money safe, and that's all I want you to do. Other people are like, did Barclays change its logo? I got some rainbow colors instead of the normal blue logo. What's the meaning of this? Logo now looks like an app for painting. Is Barclays going down? There was all kinds of comments that people wrote, and people were not happy about this. Now, this is not necessarily Christians only. These are just people that don't necessarily support the ideology being presented in this way. And Barclays' response as well was very kind of like dismissive. It's kind of like this is our way of supporting, the solidarity with the LGBT posse. I don't know, who are persecuted more than Christians, I guess. Something crazy. Look at all these logos, guys. Can you see all these businesses, right? Whenever it comes to Pride Month, Pride Week, there's a lot of peer pressure. I wonder how this impacts Christians who are working in these spaces as well, right? It's just like a group that claims to be oppressed or victimized, but you can see the power of the corporate world that supports very liberal ideas and very extreme views as well, right? It's no longer about tolerance. It's about, bow down, It's kind of like, where's your LGBT flag? Why are you not waving it this month? So you can see that the landscape has changed massively. I'm going to play this short video, which is really an introduction to a mini film documentary, if you like, and it's called Paint the Wall Black. And it tells the story of Nini's Deli. I'm just gonna play it.
Why is Nini's Chicago's best?
What makes Nini's truly Chicago best is our love for people and our love for our community.
Every time I come in, they treat you like your family.
I like that they're so personable.
It's like being in your family's house.
Kwani just makes this a really welcoming environment.
We made a post saying we believe all lives matter because all lives are made in the image of God. And when I posted that, all hell broke loose.
A popular deli in downtown Chicago is no longer in business after a campaign to destroy their business was launched when they didn't fully support the Black Lives Matter movement.
Cancel me! Cancel me! Cancel me! Cancel me!
And I let them know, if y'all are gonna come protest, we're gonna come preach.
Paint the wall black! Paint the wall black! Jesus wants
He's Chicago's best.
So guys, that was, I don't know if anybody's seen it, but that was the story of Nini's Deli. That was just obviously a preview. Go on YouTube and actually look it up. It's a very interesting watch. What you have is a guy who came to faith. He was actually kind of, I think he was gay or multi, whatever, doing that kind of stuff. Repented, came into salvation. And as part of his service, which was serving food to the community, they had really good customer service because he saw it as like serving the Lord, you know, treating people really well in the community. And as a result, Nini's Deli's developed quite a reputation in Chicago, right? Everybody wanted to taste their burritos. You know, it was like, that's the place to go. Everybody liked them, loved them. Then the BLM thing came in. As a result, they were, some people asking questions. Why are you not, you know, signing up to BLM? Why are you not promoting BLM, etc.? And they were like, they had to eventually release a statement. And their statement basically read like, you know, we love our community. We love everybody. We believe that everybody is made in God's image and every life matters, right? All lives matter, and etc., etc. They got a massive backlash. People wanted to shut down the business. People came there. In the video, you see somebody with an LGBT flag and it said 666 on it, right? And this really highlights to them that there was a spirit behind the BLM movement that was just like not right, you know? This is somebody who is in the community, loved by the community, treats people good. Even himself has a gay kind of background and has repented and come into Christ. And he's just like, everybody's life matters. And before you know it, they want to shut down the business, right? So you can see that there is warfare in the marketplace. And this is not warfare that we need to shy away from. This is something that we need to dive into. We need to provide solutions for people, and we need to challenge the narratives that are out there. And not necessarily by campaigning through your business, but I'm just saying providing good services for people that people can just simply enjoy without being bombarded by strange ideologies. So the fourth reason why I think we need to be in business is this. God has given you a specific burden, right? The Lord has given you a burden. This is not something to ignore. In Nehemiah chapter 2, verse 1 to 2, it says, in the month of Nisan, in the 20th year of King Artaxerxes, when wine was brought for him, I took the wine and gave it to the king. I had not been sad in his presence before. So the king asked me, why does your face look so sad when you're not ill? This can be nothing but sadness of the heart. So this is actually Nehemiah, and he was so saddened and burdened for his people, right? Because Israel, the walls of Israel had broken down, and that made him really sad to the point where he couldn't even hide it in the king's presence. And the king now inquired about that, and as a result, he was funded and resourced and equipped to go and carry out that work of rebuilding the walls of Israel, right? And go and read the story yourself. It's a really powerful story. But what am I trying to extract from this? some of us actually have an idea. Some of you you've had a burden or a thought, and some of you have been carrying this for like a decade, right? You might have had something. I mean, some of the business ideas that I've carried out and done and initiatives are things that I've kind of repeated over and over and just done better and better every time. Things I've had as a child, right? That burdens I've had or thoughts and ideas I've had that are only realizing themselves like many years later. So many of us do carry an idea or a thought or something that the Lord has impressed on you. And maybe you've been ignoring that thing. Maybe there's something that makes you sad, mad, or angry. Maybe it's something that's just like, it just motivates you, right? Think about it. Sometimes you need to take action, as in when you take that action, you don't know what the impact will be. There's a lot of people that are waiting on your solution. A lot of people are waiting for you to take action and to do something. You know, I'll give you a funny example, you know. Before I eat food, when I was younger, I was taught to pray in a certain way, and I pray this in this automated kind of way, you know. Thank you, Lord, for this food. Provide for those who don't have food. Provide for those in need type thing, you know. Thank you, Lord, eat my food, right? But guess what? Over the years, that prayer started to kick in, you know. I was like, I'm praying for those in need. Okay, how am I helping those in need? How can I help those in need, right? The prayer becomes a reality. And so it's something that's like, okay, that's a burden. That's something to do something about, right? That can lead to starting an orphanage, helping widows, all kinds of stuff. So you've been given a particular burden. Everybody has different burdens or different things that are on their heart, and you need to take action on those things. Number 5 reason, the things you learn when you build, right? This is a reason why I would recommend us getting involved in enterprise and business. The amount of things that you learn when you start your own initiative or collaborate in somebody else's initiative or business or starting anything from scratch or even from the middle, right? Once you get involved, the amount of things that you learn. This is one of the things I would really recommend. This is why I kind of like when somebody has an idea, I'm like, yeah, go for it, you know? It doesn't matter how ignorant you think you are, how much you think you don't know, how much ability you think you don't have, yeah? Get started. Another thing is this. What the Lord has made you to do, He's also equipped you to do. And sometimes you don't know how equipped you are until you take the steps. Does that make sense? So I would really encourage people to get involved in any enterprise that they want to do, because by taking that step forward, right, you learn so much. And one of the things I enjoy about business is just even the types of people you start to network with. You start to connect to people. People start recommending you for different things. Before you know it, you're doing different things, you know. Once the lockdown started, I started an Instagram page, which was about basically parenting, right? It didn't start off that way. I've kind of been freestyling with it a tiny bit. But, you know, it led to somebody recommending me to join an Instagram chat about fatherhood. I think, yeah, fatherhood, yeah, or becoming a man type thing. And I was live on that Instagram, and that was interesting. It sparked another idea in my mind. I was like, oh yeah, I need to create this service to help young men, right, to become men. And I discovered that that's a real need in the market space, in the marketplace. And even as I've started this Instagram page, I've learned really the power of Instagram, because since I started that page, I've had so many inquiries, people who want to work with me, right? So that's already thousands of monies. But I've just been rejecting it because of time and priority and other kinds of reasons. But the point being, I've learned so much from just doing a daily activity. I'm like, I'm going to post every day. I'm going to measure the metrics. I'm going to see how this thing works, right? And I've learned so much. In the same way, by starting any enterprise, you learn a great deal. Number 6 reason is Commonwealth. Our Commonwealth matters, right? Our economy matters. You know, I was just talking earlier about BLM. There was this whole idea of Black Pound Day and all this kind of like, we need to do business with ourselves and et cetera, et cetera. Guess what? As believers, we need to be thinking along these lines as well. How are we keeping wealth within ourselves, right? How are we supporting each other? How are we ensuring that God's standard is maintained for everybody? In the book of Acts, chapter 4, verse 33 to 35, it says, And God's grace was so powerfully at work in them all that there were no needy persons among them. For from time to time, those who owned land or houses sold them, brought the money from the sales, and put it at the apostles' feet, and it was distributed to anyone who had need. The point I'm making here is that we should have no needy persons among us. It's a bold statement, but guess what? That is actually the standard. We shouldn't have needy people amongst us, because amongst us, there's enough wealth and resource to take care of everybody, right? And I'm not talking just about money, right? You know, like Maslow's hierarchy of need. I don't know if you've heard of it, but it talks about, like, you know, the basic needs that people have before they can even start thinking about other things. You know, they need their food, water, warmth, and those basic things. Then they need security, a sense of belonging, etc., etc. All of these things, God's people, the ecclesia, should be able to provide. When people engage with God's people, it should be a reflection of God's culture. There should be wealth in the house, right? There should be a sense of needs are met. Does that make sense? So in James chapter 2, verse 15, to 16, it talks about the practicality of faith. And the scripture says this, that suppose a brother or sister is without clothes and daily food. If one of you says to them, go in peace, keep warm and well fed, but does nothing about their physical need, what good is it? That's a powerful scripture there, isn't it? Right? You know, it makes me think, you know, whenever somebody comes to you with a need, say, oh, pray for me. You're like, okay, I'll pray for you. Phew, that's all they're asking for, you know. The point being is that, you know, faith needs to be practical. Our prayers need to be practical. There's a lot of things that we pray about that we can actually solve, right? There's a mantra that we have in our community that see a need, fill a need. And we need to employ that mindset. Point number 7, a righteous man leaves an inheritance. This is actually a scripture in Proverbs chapter 13, verse 22. It says, a good person leaves an inheritance for their children's children, but a sinner's wealth is stored up for the righteous. So this tells us a standard, right? That it's actually a righteous thing to be in a position to leave an inheritance, not just for your children, but for your children's children. So this means that we should be thinking multi-generationally. We shouldn't just be thinking of just the here and the now, or just of our personal selves. We should also be thinking, you know, there's a scripture that says that, you know, the man who doesn't take care of his family is worse than even an unbeliever, right? We should also be thinking of taking care of ourselves, taking care of our families, taking care of the community. But we should also have this multi-generational aspect, creating assets and resources and things that will support the next, our children's children. I want to give an example of this by talking about schools, right? There's a quote here, and it says, every school you see, public or private, religious or secular, is a visible reminder of the religion of Jesus Christ. We know it's not religion. So is every college and university. That's a powerful quote. And I'll give you some examples right here. Literacy, the whole idea of literacy. Lots of the first books that were translated into, like, from many languages to English or into their languages. Most of the first books, right, were pioneered by missionaries, translating the Bible or translating literary works so that people could learn to read, so that they could engage with God's word. Schools for all, to become members of the Christian church. This was like in this, I don't know, 16th century or whatever, right? There was the idea that to become part of the body, you had to go through education. And so you'd have to go through 2 to 3 years of teaching. And we call that catechism, right? To be catechized. You know what I'm trying to say. The Orthodox Church, for example, literally practices that. So to become a member, you have to go through education, and then you're part of the family. And this is how lots of schools developed, and there was no distinction about male or female. Everybody had to go through this. We revolutionized the education system. in the sense of education for boys and girls. You see, from the Greek background of education, for example, they only educated just boys, right? But through the legacy of faith, we have education for boys and girls. Graded education was an idea that came from a Christian Lutheran guy. He believed that people would be motivated if they saw that once they achieved something, then they move on to the next grade and the next level. So, you know, we take it for granted that you have year 1, year 2, year 3, grade 1, grade 2, you know, all these grades. There's actually an innovation that came to somebody to have that in place, to have that kind of progression. We've all heard of the printing press, I hope anyway, but maybe we haven't actually, because we take it for granted the fact that we have so many books that are printed, so many things that we can read. The printing press was another invention by a Christian that revolutionized, I need to practice this word, revolutionized everything, you know, in a massive way. In fact, the printing press could be likened to the internet in its time. You know, and guess what? The first book that was printed was the Bible, which is the bestseller, even till now. The whole idea of kindergartens was started by Frederick Froebel, and he developed the idea of schools that would allow young children to grow under the care of an expert gardener. He himself was the son of a pastor. And so that's where you have the whole idea of kindergarten. Kinder means kids and garden, right? So there's a teacher who was an expert gardener because they believe, like, you know, God and creation was part of a holistic understanding of who we are and should form part of education, basically. So he used to literally teach children in the garden, and that's where you got the idea of kindergarten, which is more of a term used in America, but that would be, the equivalent here would be, what's the equivalent here? I don't know, school for kids, right? Okay, and then also education for the deaf. That's another innovation that a Christian man called Charles Lepee developed. Formal teaching for the deaf. Education for the blind was by Louise Braille, right? We've all heard of the whole idea of Braille writing, right? Or reading, which is you know, allows a blind person to feel a piece of paper or surface, and he can read or feel the letters, right? And therefore read the letters. This was something, the guy who invented this himself was a Christian, and he became blind around the age of 3, you know, and he later on developed a whole alphabetical system, which many people, these things have revolutionized and changed the lives of so many people. And then we have Sunday school, right? Sunday school came about because, you know, in England, there was a time, before there was like labor laws, lots of kids were working 6 days of the week, right? And they were working 12-hour shifts. And then the only day they had to rest was like that Sunday, and therefore Sunday school was invented to be able to give these children an opportunity to relax and to learn as well. And then it became global. So that's just to let you know that we have a legacy of entrepreneurialism that has really transformed societies and changed the world. I want us to remember who we are. I want us to remember that this is an aspect of who we are. Point number 8, the safety net that comes from multiple streams. You see, the average millionaire has 7 streams of income. I'm not sure if people are aware of that, but the average millionaire has 7 different streams of income. And during volatile times, which this last year has been, a lot of people have lost their jobs, been made redundant, and there's always something anyway that's around the corner, right? You never know. So another good reason why we should be entrepreneurial in our thinking is that by having 7 streams of income, you at least soften the blow, right? You're not just relying on one thing. You know, like the saying goes, don't lay all your eggs in one basket. Unfortunately, most of us have kind of grown up with a mindset that, you know, you graduate and then you get yourself a good job and then, you know, that's it. The thing is, there's so many more ways. And with the internet as well, there's so many ways to explore creating cash flow and wealth, and, you know, and how we should handle our money. And by the way, in the next couple of weeks as well, we're going to have different speakers that will share some of their experiences. And I'm sure lots of ideas will start clicking in our minds as well. Number 9. Okay, so why we need to be in business. Number 9, fund and support important initiatives, right? By us being involved in enterprise, it gives us an opportunity to fund and support very important projects and works. In Luke chapter 8, verse 3, it says this, that Jonah, whose husband was Chusa, was Herod's administrator, Susanna, and many other women. They provided financial support for Jesus and his disciples. Think about that. There were women who were either in business or enterprising or had some kind of cash, and a lot of them were supporting the ministry of Jesus and his disciples, at least for a portion of time. So there's so many needs out there, and there's so many good things that people are doing out there that require us to co-labor with them, whether it's financial support, whether it's our time, whether it's our resources, knowledge, or access, all kinds of stuff. And so we need to start seeing initiatives as part of mission work. Does that make sense? I want us to start seeing that when you see a problem and you think you are unable to solve that problem, right? It might not be you to solve the problem. You might be the one to create a system that allows that problem to be solved. You might be the one to create a system that's creating some kind of revenue, and therefore now the homeless are taken care of, right? There's an example I've shared in times past, and this is of a hospital called Egbe Hospital, which is in Nigeria, which is actually my hometown where I was born. And in 1952, Dr. and Mrs. Campion, as well as many other Nigerians and missionaries, built this hospital in the region. This hospital has actually gone on to become the biggest employer of that region. Many people have been saved physically and spiritually through this work and through this enterprise. Over some time, though, the hospital was not well taken care of, right? Dilapidated. And the son of this man, Campion, George Campion, his son, Don Campion, who grew up in my hometown actually for like 19 years, went to the US. In the US, he actually owns a business, right? A private jet business. He employs I think about 200 people or so, right? So doing very well. He's taken lots of his resources, lots of his cash and equipment, and even his people as well, employees as well, have come over, and they have helped to reestablish and to rebuild this hospital, not just by themselves. I mean, you might have heard of Dangote, for example. He's the richest man in Africa. He donated some bricks to the new buildings that were being formed, and many other people, like from all over the world, as well as within Nigeria as well. This is a picture of my dad, for example, opening one of the parts of the hospital in the middle there. So it was a collaborative work, but guess what? This is the type of work that can't really be accomplished without resource. You need cash, but not just cash. You also need the mindsets and the skills of people to be able to do. There's so much work to be done, right? The skillfulness of building certain things, certain systems. You also needed doctors as well. And also some of these missionary doctors have like volunteered for 2 years to work there, paid, but not necessarily on maximum pay and stuff. You know, so there's so much that your money can do for the kingdom. There's even that scripture that says, use your worldly mammon to win souls to Christ. I think it's in Luke somewhere. This is an image of an extension of that revitalization project, which is like building a whole new nursing complex, because there's also a college to train nurses. And if you look at where they're currently staying and living, it's just not in good conditions, basically. And so the next phase of the project is to build this whole new complex for nurses. This is transforming lives for people on the ground. You know, this is creating employment. This is building reputation. And this requires lots of money, ingenuity, and all those things that we're trying to shape through the Enterprise Hub. So I hope you guys can connect the dots, that when we talk about money and we talk about wealth, it's not a kind of ungodly thing now. We're not talking about, oh, it's money, this has nothing to do with God. No, enterprise has always been part of how we are and how we should be. Even Paul, when he rebuked, well, I don't know if it was a rebuke, but anyway, he talked about not being lazy, right? And he talked about how when he was working, when he was amongst serving with the people in that locality, that he himself was working and he himself was a tent maker, right? So he's demonstrating and modeling a way of being, right? The way we see work needs to completely change. And there was a great presentation we had many months ago about work and just seeing work. And the whole idea of work was something that existed before the fall. We tend to define work as something that was almost like a curse or something, but work existed before the fall. So you see that work is part of co-governing with Christ. It's part of co-managing resources with him. So number 10, number 10 reason is this, of why we need to be in business, is that it's an opportunity for us to work on our passion and to be engaged with our purpose. Ephesians chapter 5, verse 16 to 17 says this: making the best use of the time because the days are evil. Therefore, do not be foolish, but understand what the will of the Lord is. Now, I'm not saying that this whole scripture here is saying that because the time is short, get involved in business. No, that's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is the days are evil, the time is short. And there you are with a purpose, with a burden, with something that you're supposed to be doing, with a gift, right? And the funniest thing is this: a lot of people see their jobs as a hindrance to their use of time. A lot of people hate their jobs and they don't see it as the best use of time. The thing is, we have to always remember this. And I'm not telling people to go and quit your jobs, not at all, because working in your job is also part of being enterprising. Yeah, it's also part of work in your labor. And there's many skills and things that come from a career along those lines. So that's not the point I'm trying to make. But the point is this: a lot of people, a lot of us are spending our time and our hours doing things that we feel completely unfulfilled by. We feel it's actually hindering us from doing what we are called to do, right? And I'm saying don't ignore that feeling, because at the end of the day, when you meet the Lord, you're going to have to give account for your time. The thing is that it doesn't matter how rich you are or how poor you are. We've all been given an equal, well, not an exact equal amount of time, but you get what I'm saying? Every 24 hours, every day, you're given time. You know, time is not money, time is life. And you need to really give account for how you use your life and how you use your time. And so that's another reason. So number 10, I said there was 10 reasons, but yeah, I've added an extra one, right? Extra value, why not? So 10 plus. So, and this is the final point for why we need to be in business. Our representation and his reputation matters. There's this term called the Protestant work ethic, and it was used to describe the culture of Christians around that time and how they saw work. They saw work as something that was unto the Lord. And so the energy and the effort that they put into this work actually transformed entire cities and economies. And that is known as the Protestant work ethic. The point I'm trying to raise there really is a cultural point. The point is, as believers, as citizens of God's kingdom, we're actually supposed to be known as hard workers. It's actually part of one of those things that gives God glory, that his people are known for their enterprising nature, right? For their productivity. In 2 Thessalonians chapter 3, verse 10 to 11, it says, "For even when we were with you, we gave you this rule. The one who is unwilling to work shall not eat. We hear that some among you are idle and disruptive. They are not busy, but they are busy bodies." So we must demonstrate a healthy work ethic. It's actually not, it's below the kingdom standard for us to just be busybodies or for us to be lazy and unproductive. You know, and this is one of those problems with the way prosperity gospel, when it was trending, was being taught, right? There's this idea that, look, give me your offerings and donate this amount of money, and then you get your breakthrough. And that breakthrough really was basically more money in your bank account, right? Some cash flow, just some sudden amount of money that would just appear and manifest for you. Really, what that was doing was breeding a laziness in people's minds. Why, spend time preaching that kind of message when you can just point people to, some good resources, like, go and read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, right? Realize that there's a connection between your work and the results and and what you produce. So as God's people, God's reputation is impacted by how we approach the marketplace, by how we are enterprising, by the innovations and the things that we come up with, like I touched on, for example, in just education itself, right? It's something that we've forgotten, but in just education itself, the amount of world transformation that's happened through Christian innovation. And I want to remind us of who we are, basically. And I want us to be enterprising and be an enterprising people again. So I'm just going to go over those points again, just in case you forgot. Point number one was this, for why we need to be in business. We have been given the power to make wealth. Number two, there are problems that need our solutions. Number three, there is a cultural war in the marketplace. Number four, God has given you a specific burden that you shouldn't ignore. Number five, the things you learn when you build, the amount of things you learn when you start. Number six, commonwealth. Our economy matters. It's important that we work with each other, edify the body, and share wealth. Number seven, a righteous man leaves an inheritance. So we need to have multi-generational thinking. And number eight, the safety net that comes from multiple streams. We shouldn't just think of one stream of income in this day and age. We should be thinking of multiple streams of income. Start building them out. It doesn't have to be amazing, but it's better to have some rather than none. If that makes sense. Number nine, we should fund and support more initiatives, whether it's feeding the poor, whether it's feeding the homeless, whether it's helping somebody who just lands in the country, as was mentioned earlier, whether it's help coaching somebody in fear, all kinds of ideas and innovations, technology, whatever, right? There are things that require our funding and our support. There's so many things that we complain about. You might complain about Hollywood and the indoctrination of the kids and stuff, but guess what? You need to fund God's people to produce something that meets that level of quality and storytelling, etc. You need to resource and make those things happen. Number 10, work on your passion and your purpose. And the bonus point was that our reputation and his reputation or representation, the other way around, matters. So on that note, I will leave it right there. Guys, I want to capture your thoughts and your questions. Does anybody have, has there been any questions or any thoughts in the chats? And does anybody have anything that they'd like to contribute to what has just been presented?
I just want to say that I really enjoyed the presentation today. This just reminds me of conversations I've had over the years, even in our community, where I just noticed that it's almost like Christians have forgotten that actually the privileges that we have in the Western world, a lot of it came from the Judeo-Christian foundations, including our human rights and the way we look at each other as human beings, down to inventions. And a lot of people nowadays like to say things like, oh, I believe in science, or science is logical, or my religion, I've heard my religion is science. And it's like, well, do you know that the forefathers, majority of them were if not all of them, up until a certain point, were born again or believers, or believe in God. So just knowing that we actually do have a responsibility. And I love what you said, that us being enterprising, that's what God wants us to be. That's what makes us the salt of the earth, and that's why he said we have dominion. And when we're enterprising and we're creative, we're doing what he did. He had a thought and he made it into existence. We're like mini him, we're mini versions of God on this earth created. He's given us the resources to do that. And that's why the story of the talents and the miners is so important, because it touches on that. If it wasn't important, God, Christ, it wouldn't be in the Bible, not just one place, but in two places. So I think this is a discussion that believers need to constantly have. And I love what you were saying about the whole, the Black Pound Day thing, where Christians need to have not necessarily like a Christian Pound Day, but we need to have the same idea of keeping resources within our community, because when we do this, we impact the world. We're supposed to be where the world comes to for salt, or for, you know, we're the salt and they come to us, right? So when we do that and we cultivate that kind of a community and that system, we will be at the top again. We will be, well, what I'm trying to say is basically, instead of asking for a seat at the table, they'll be coming to us, you know. And it once was like that in history, and it's almost like the world has tried to make us forget who we are, and Christians don't have that confidence anymore. But we need to be telling people that no, actually the privileges that you have today actually are from our forefathers, or the patriarchs that went before. Yeah, I just wanted to add that little
Thank you. I'm so glad you shared that. Some golden stuff that you just said. Absolutely. I mean, even in music, for example, you know, a lot of music started from the church, started from God's people and how we do things, right? And then it was taken out, and then, you know, secularized, and then it's become something else, right? And now we're dealing with videos like WAP, and what's the name of that 666 guy, you know, recently. They just, you know, I actually saw a news article that said that music, well, I can't remember what it's called, Monstero or whatever, is #1 in the charts. I was like, what? So people bought it as well, or buy into it, or something, I don't know, right? But it made me think also that, like, I don't think people like that stuff, but I think the systems are so well created that it's guaranteed it to be first. But the point being anyway is that we've forgotten that even in music, right, these are innovations and genres that we created. And we've forgotten so much. We've forgotten so much. When you don't exercise a muscle, you start to lose that muscle. Once you don't exercise that skill, you start to lose that skill. You know, the calculator has made many people not great at maths. You know, even though it's great. I'm so happy for the calculator. I'm very happy for the calculator. But just what I'm trying to say, once you don't exercise something, you lose it. And before you know it, you have this idea that it's not your responsibility. It's somebody else's, right? So yeah, does anybody have any other thoughts, any other questions about why we need to be in business and enterprise? Don't all rush at once.
Yeah, thanks, Pelumi. That was a great presentation and a great reminder of the need to be in business. And I think even more so now, seeing the way society is going and the way, like you said with Barclays, how these big organizations are now infringing upon our rights, essentially, because they want to peddle what they feel they believe in, and unfortunately, whether you like it or not, you just have to roll with it. So it's we're in dangerous waters, I think, at the moment, especially with the way things are going. And I think it's so important. It just shows the need of getting into business and why even working is so important. And I just thought of one of the things I posted was about even the temple. You know, we saw that when they were building the temple, they asked for craftsmen, they asked for all these people in the community to step forward and build it. And that was a beautiful representation of the community coming together and having a common goal to actually build. And so I just thought I really appreciated what you were saying with the Commonwealth and having that mindset. I just wanted to say that it doesn't take you having to be the most logical or the most intelligent or even have an invention. There could be something out there already, but you just feel like, you know what, wow, I can see that I can do that better. And I think, yeah, because sometimes we see business and we think, oh my gosh, I'm not an inventor, I'm not that intelligent, I'm not this, I'm not an Einstein. But I was just want to encourage people that you don't need to be.
Don't need to be, absolutely. And guess what? You know, for the gaps that you have, there's somebody who else can fill that gap. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Often we think that we're not equipped for something. And you don't have to, you know, there's a body that has all kinds of gifts and talents. That really is the wealth. That is the wealth of the body, right? And so, yeah, I'm so happy for what you said. Absolutely. Absolutely. Any other thoughts? Has anybody had any idea in their mind, and has this provoked any thoughts or any initiative or any need that they're thinking, you know what, I need to plug this gap?
Hi P, just to say it's a good presentation. Yeah, no, I don't have really anything to add other than just what Elena said about you don't have to be anything special, to be honest. Sometimes a lot of the most successful people are so quote unquote average. It actually is surprising, but I think we do a disservice to ourselves as believers, and that's in general. We put people on the pedestal and we think that when they've achieved something, they are this type of person. Partly because we don't see people's journeys from the beginning. But there is a thing that a lot of people don't cut onto things until it's hot. You know, people will see you doing the struggle, and it's only when you then great success will go, oh my God, how did you do that? But why didn't you ask me? You should have asked me when I was there struggling, because that's where you learn a lot of the things, as they say, like you learn more in the struggle, in the mistakes, than you sometimes learn in the success. Because success comes with its own trepidation, because you're then now having to always match that success and go greater. There's a certain level of pressure. But anyways, but I just wanted to just echo the fact that you don't have to be anything great. Like just have an idea, go for it. It doesn't work out, have another idea, go for it. It doesn't work out. A bit like Einstein, isn't it? How many inventions did he take to make the light bulb? People say that, but people genuinely are not. People are so scared to make those mistakes.
Yeah.
Of what mistakes and failure mean, but actually most successful business people didn't start off unsuccessful on their first venture. So, but you know, reality is, I just think that people really need to just get their minds right. I think if you don't get your mind right, then it is going to be very difficult, because entrepreneurship is a journey. It's a level of self-exposure. It's a level of vulnerability. In that, your mind right.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Absolutely.
Pelumi.
Yes.
Hi, bro. Wonderful presentation. Like I mentioned in the comments, really inspiring. Really gave a lot of food for thought. And I think it gives a sense of a self-accountability to the Christian as to, are you thinking along these lines? Are you hitting these parameters, these goals? Are you aligning yourself to kind of this structure, which I think is actually really strong, robust? I was going to just answer your question as to the question from Elizabeth, I think, around ideas.
Okay.
I think Esther kind of touched on it, that people put a lot of pressure on themselves to have the right spark idea that's the massive invention that's going to sell and solve all their problems. Whereas actually it can be either a number of smaller ideas that just work to a reasonably level of success, or it could be one big idea. And I think as well, there are so many resources now that you can actually either buy or hire, or even some are free, would actually tell you what's trending, what people are buying, what people are interested in. So rather than kind of putting this pressure on yourself to invent something brand new, you just follow the trends and buy and sell what's hot.
Absolutely.
And so rather than having to, be the font of invention, you just leverage up what other people are doing, and then you jump in it until, so there are so many resources out there now to help think for you. And I think that's one of the great things about our age. Things are now thinking for you to help you, rather than you having to necessarily do it all yourself. Sorry about you.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Another thing I'd say, Lizzie, is sometimes it's also what you are interested in yourself. That's often a good place to start, because you know a lot about it. For example, even like just with yourself, like what you studied, or like being a motherhood, being a wife. These are like things that you can actually, turn into something quite resourceful, and people are actually doing it now.
Cool. Thanks for that question. That's a very good question. Okay. there's a multi-layer of things I can say to that. So a lot of I've heard people, not Christian, just people in general actually say they want to quit their jobs so they can start their own business, right? Because they don't want to work for anybody. And I think that there's a mindset issue with that way of thinking. The thing about business, right, like if it's your own business, for example, is it actually involves more work typically, at least to get it off the ground, than working for somebody else. Because you're taking a lot more risk, a lot more stress, a lot more, you know. So I feel like, first of all, lazy people who are looking for an easier life should not probably be thinking that, you know, of leaving their jobs. Second thing, depending on your job and your career path, you know, that might work for you. That might be a good thing to do, right? That might be you maximizing your resourcefulness and your purpose and your calling and hitting all those different points. So that's another thing. Another thing is struggling for ideas. It's funny because I have the opposite problem, yeah, which is I have no shortage of ideas whatsoever. And I think all I kind of just answer that, to be honest, because you don't have to be reinventing the wheel. As somebody once said, you know, even if you're not the Coke, you can be the Pepsi. And Pepsi is in the money. Does that make sense? It's not even just about cash anyway, or making money, but the point is, it's not always about reinventing the wheel. Sometimes it's just about doing things in your way. Nobody can do things in your way or in your flavor, or even target a niche, right? A group of people. The thing is wide. Everybody has this thing, is there, but there's a group of people that are not being served by this thing, or it's not appealing to them, and you just take the same thing and do it for them, right? So the way I see it is it's hard for me to understand when people don't have ideas because there's 101. And I'm thinking that you fall into a trap when you're thinking of ideas rather than thinking of needs and challenges and problems that people have. So once you change from thinking of ideas, and once you even move away from thinking of how can I make money for myself type thing, and you shift that to how can I empower other people? How can I help this person? How can I help this community? In that thinking in itself, ideas come, innovation comes. Because it's not even about anything lavish, you know. Somebody can't go to the shop to get food. For example, when the lockdown started, we sent a message out to our neighbors saying that if you need some food, like we're willing to go out and get that food, right? Do you know what? Somebody else has done something like that for elderly people. It started with these 2 boxes. They're even boxes, right? Before you know it, they had a business, like making lots of cash from it, yeah? And it was helping to serve people, get food and transport it. Fruits, I think it was, yeah, to different people. So once we focus on the needs, right, I think ideas and solutions follow after that. And then also another thing, a gap that we plan to plug through the Enterprise Hub, it's not so much just ideas, right? It's really systems, sales systems, marketing, and all these other things that help an idea turn into a reality, into a strong structure. Come in, Fred. Did you have
something? So you've given me a landing strip there, which is what I wanted to do, actually. I think, first of all, really good presentation, and the contributions so far, I think, have been really, really important. On the points that you raised, I think you talked about, for example, sometimes the mentality that people have when it comes to wanting to leave their job, classically, which is basically their job is where they spend most of their time. And they want to leave their job and do something for themselves and be free from the slavery of the system they're in, for want of a better word, and that is consuming their time. I think one of the things that I remind people about the importance of your employment, and sometimes people forget that, is that any business, whether you've got an idea, a product of some sort, which it can be in any way, shape or form, it has to be deployed through a system. And when we talk about the term business, we are really talking about a system for producing something, sharing that, and in a transaction in that process. And I think that what happens is people often don't really benefit sometimes from their job because they're missing out on the fact that they're working in a system and that they can actually learn a lot about that system.
Absolutely.
And by learning about that system, you can then employ the things that you've learned from that system in other areas, like a business or a charity or XYZ. And I think this is why people get locked out of the benefits of employment, because they don't see it as a system they're working in, which they can learn from and then apply to other things.
Absolutely.
And I think that the reason for that, if you don't mind me saying, and you alluded to it, is that when we were growing up, we've not grown up in a culture where the trade of our fathers or mothers was being handed to us. So what happened is that we go out to work with a mentality. We leave the home. We go out to work with a mentality that says we are developing our own careers. And so our career is this specialized thing. It's a role that sits in a system, but we never learn about the system which creates the role. And I think that actually all systems create roles of specialization. And we would have got that if we had been working in an environment where our parents were handing down a trade to us, because it would have been the family business and our role within that. And it would have created a different culture. So these are some of the reasons why we don't then benefit from the jobs that we have from day to day. I've benefited immensely from my job because I've appreciated it's a system. And I've learnt about the different systems working within it and the tools that working within it.
Absolutely. And you know what? In every job as well, there's wealth to be taken and shared as well with God's people. You know, there's so many things that there might be a way of working in, I don't know, a particular industry, a process that they take or something that they do. And then you see that and you're like, oh, the ecclesia will benefit from this when we do this or when we do that. You take that knowledge. Knowledge is wealth in itself. So I think we do a disservice to ourselves when we think in that kind of way. But then another thing, Fred, this goes back to a presentation you did some months back, which was about work. You know, the mindset that some people have is like, you know, it's like trying to get away from work, you know, wanting to retire.
Yeah.
And I have no plans to retire.
Yeah,
right?
neither do I.
I have no plans to relax. But the thing is that life is work in the kingdom, right?
Yeah.
It's not necessarily toiling and it's not necessarily labor, like in the negative sense. But productivity is part of our DNA. It's part of our DNA. And we need to bring that back.
I think, and you hit the nail on the head there. I mean, the issue is as we've said before, we tend to have a recliner and grapes attitude. Yes. Where basically at some point in our lives you want to retire and do nothing. And what I've watched generations around me, older generations who have had that mentality, and I've seen how much actually it's taken their life from them when they did retire. The most successful,
more likely to die early.
Well, yeah, the most successful elderly people I've actually seen in life have been those people that retired from one thing and began working another thing.
That's it.
And it's that understanding that actually being productive is never about stopping work. It's about work fitting within the context of purpose. And people who are driven by purpose love to work.
Yeah.
And you even find it when you're working with people. If you're in a job, the day-to-day job, you find, those people around you that love what they do. So it never is a thought to them. It's not that it doesn't get hard, but it's never a thought to them that somehow this is something that is slavery. Yeah. So purpose is the driving factor. Purpose drives our work ethic, and it creates a work ethic which we love. It becomes a burden that we love to carry, even though it is hard sometimes.
Absolutely, absolutely. And guys, within this, first of all, is there any other contributions as we round up? Any other? Okay, I'm going to move on. Yes. So thanks for all your sharing, guys.
Sorry, I was going to ask a question. It took too long.
Okay, yeah.
No, do you think, so you mentioned people need to be entrepreneurial and stuff like that.
Yeah. Can you speak up a bit?
Oh, can you hear me? Can you hear me
Yeah.
now?
Yeah.
Do you think that every single citizen is called to be entrepreneurial in business. The reason why, because I know Enterprise Hub is not just about that, it could be ministry, it's about innovation and about projects. But as you're talking about business specifically, do you think everybody is is able to do a business? Everyone can do a business, or
okay, I'll answer it this way. So everyone can see a need and fill a need, right? I don't think necessarily it's for it's even a broad question, to be honest, because even if I was able to do, let's say, a business, right, doesn't mean I can do every type of business. Not every type of business would speak to me or would be in my skill set, for example, right? So, but do I think business is something that anybody can get involved with? On a basic level, I think yes. But at the same time, I don't want people to see somebody else doing a business, right? And then think, oh, I need to be doing a business. Not really, not necessarily. So in that sense, it's not for everyone, right? It's not for everyone to start a kind of enterprise on their own to I don't know, register their business. It's not necessarily for everybody. Like, everybody needs to think of your purpose, your mission, what you're doing, how you're supporting the community, supporting your family, etc. But I would say it's for everyone to be enterprising. Enterprising is something that I want to be a default amongst us, and I believe it can be. It's not something special. It's the way you are, being enterprising. And the thing is, I think it would happen naturally once you hang around with people, that are...
Pete, can I just come in on that? Because I think it's a really good question. I think that when I think of it in summary, I think that our life needs to be a business.
Yes.
And we need to be, and then within that life as a business, and when I say business, I'm not trying to be formal.
Yeah.
I'm saying our life is a business because it's an industry. And within that, we are to foster the spirit of being enterprising in that business.
Yes, and productive.
Which is productivity. Yeah, enterprising is about being productive.
Yeah.
And that's why when we talked about this area of work, that's why we went down the route of the Enterprise Hub. Because the word itself is about being enterprising, being productive, because we take our lives as a business seriously.
Absolutely. So I would say everybody should be productive, right? But it doesn't necessarily mean everybody will start some other specific formal type of business necessarily. And I want to, Esther, just to chip into that question in particular as well. When we look at the biblical standard for a wonderful, amazing woman in Proverbs chapter 31 or 31.
Yeah, I was just about to add.
It's interesting that, when people reference that woman all the time, and it's almost like they have an image in their head. They don't really care what the scripture says, right? When you break it down, you see that she's home-centric. She takes care of her family, takes care of her home. But guess what? She's also enterprising, getting here and there. She also has 7 servants to help her, to manage her affairs, right? Her husband, he's doing well at the base, right? His reputation is intact because of her enterprise. So you can see that it's literally the picture of an ideal woman. It's even productive, enterprising, entrepreneurial, if you want to use that word. That's what I'm saying. So yes, I'm going to go ahead and say it's for everyone, but not necessarily it depends your idea of what business is. But it's definitely for everyone to be productive. It's definitely for everyone to see needs and fill the needs. We take so much for granted. You just look outside your window, go outside, That house was built. Those businesses, those wires and cables, those lights, behind everything, those clothes that you're wearing, there is a business behind it. And we take for granted that systems have been created around us, right? And we need to know that things don't just happen. It's because of our upbringings that we think things are just there. You think you just have a table, and the water that you're drinking from, you're just like, yeah, water happens, right? You didn't know that's how we packaged it, processed it, got it from A to B, So yeah, this is an intelligence that we need to bring back. And I think we are bringing back, and we will continue to bring back. And on the point of, can anybody start a business? You might have heard of the 12 steps from Alcoholics Anonymous, you know, AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. That was an idea, innovation that started from a Christian who himself was an alcoholic, had some issues, went to a psychotherapist, it wasn't working out. And he was told that, you know, he needs to seek a higher power, right? He came to salvation in Christ, I believe. And through his experience, he came up with the 12 steps to be delivered from alcoholism, right? And that's where we have Alcoholics Anonymous with the 12-step program. Do you see what I'm trying to say? I'm not now, the business of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, and how it's manifested now is probably way bigger than he probably even imagined at that time. He was just trying to solve a problem for people that it was solved for him, and he wanted to pass this on to other people. And from that became something bigger. And this is what happens, right? Let us not despise humble beginnings. Don't despise the little things that you're doing now, the little helps and solutions. A lot of these massive things that you see now started off very tiny and then were multiplied. So thank you so much, guys. So what is the Enterprise Hub? The Enterprise Hub is an environment that helps citizens with ideas, initiatives, startup companies, and entrepreneurs to develop by providing services such as, so this is why we exist, right? To help with network opportunities so we can network with each other. We want to cultivate collaboration, working together, knowledge sharing, resource sharing as well. We want to be able to be in a position to be able to fund initiatives and resource initiatives as well. We want to empower ourselves. We also want to promote your business as well for free. So this is something that we'll be shaping in the coming months. We want to know your businesses, your ideas, and what you're working on, and we want to promote that. We want to push and push and push and promote. Let people create awareness that, hey, look, there's a Christian that offers this service, that's doing this, right? And also, the Enterprise Hub, simply put, is a space to work. We have the online spaces, like the workspace. We have a mastermind group and a coaching environment. But also, once this lockdown is kind of over, the idea was actually to have a physical space as well that we could come together just to work or do things, right? I'm not sure if that will change. The working environment is all changing now. You know? So that's what the Enterprise Hub really is about. And guys, we also need coaches. I'm going to hand it over to Joke, but I just want to say a word on coaches, right? In order to be a coach, you don't have to have some massive, wonderful experience in coaching. Neither do you have to, know everything about business. In fact, you might not know anything about business, but you might know a specific aspect of something. Like you might know how to register a company. You might know how to build a sales funnel, right? You might know how to start a business. Like basically, providing you've done something or you have an experience in something, maybe through your work or through whatever you've done, that thing that you've done that other people have not done allows you to be able to coach them into doing it. Does that make sense? It's not a complex type of thing. Once you have any experience in a particular area, I might need to learn how to ride a bike or something. I'll be like, oh, hey, Alina, can you coach me, right? Because she has experience in that particular area. So we are looking for coaches. Joke, can I hand it over to you as well for notices?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, P. So yeah, as P said, we are looking for coaches. So if you are a believer and have experience in an area and willing to help, please do get in touch. And like P said, you don't have to, any experience is valuable experience, and we'll welcome it. So yeah, please do get in touch with us, and our contact details on the slide. And we're also doing a mastermind group. So it's a group where loads of us will get together and in different ways try and help each other with our business challenges, helping us to get to a solution much quicker. And as someone who's trying to be enterprising, I know sometimes you can hit a wall and not really know where to go, and bouncing off other people actually definitely does help and helps you come to a solution much quicker than you would by yourself. So if you're interested in that, get in touch with us as well. We haven't decided just yet how long it's going to be, how often, what the frequency is, but it's definitely something that we're looking into. And yeah, and And then free advertising. So we want to promote Christians. We want to promote believers who are doing enterprising things for the kingdom. And so if you are doing anything, or you know of someone doing something, please definitely get in contact with us or share it with us as well. And P, if you go to the next slide, yeah, this is an example of a Christian business that we recently promoted on Enterprise Hub. It's a Christian business. The owner is actually solving a modesty problem for women in fashion, which sometimes is a bit of a dilemma for women when it comes to choosing items of clothes. There isn't always a lot of options available to us. So she's solving a problem. So we've promoted her. We've also done a recent event with her on Women's Talk, where she shared her testimony and her journey to founding her organization. And she's written a blog. So if you're interested in reading her blog, she used to be a glamour model, and now she's on her modesty journey, and she's encouraging and sharing her testimony on modesty. So if you're interested in that, do head over to our website, which is restorecitizenship.org/blogs. And you will enjoy the testimony because it's really, really good.
Doctor, where can people find the presentation that Leah did?
Yeah, so if you actually go on the blog, there are links to the presentation on the events page, but also we do have our own Restore Citizenship YouTube page, so you can check it out on there. There's a playlist under Women's Talk. So if you're interested, please do check it out, because then you can actually see Leah on video.
Great.
And then next week, I will be sharing with you my journey to writing and publishing my first book, How We Love Our Hair. So hopefully you will be there next week. Please share and let people know that it's taking place if you think it's something they'll be interested in.
Amazing. I'm really looking forward to next week, and it's going to be so interesting.